Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for the question. Mr. Speaker, sir, as highlighted in Parliament, government has supported the Drua rugby team, which is owned by the Counter Ruck Pte Limited, or CRL as it's commonly known. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think a lot of people may actually want to ask the question, why is it owned by a private company? Mr. Speaker, sir, the New Zealand Rugby Union, which is actually the one that's heading or set up the Super Rugby Pacific competition, had a number of conditions. They did not want the Super Rugby team, which is part of this competition, to be handled by the rugby union of the particular country itself. They wanted it as a separate entity. So they want a creation of an independent entity. And of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, as a result of which Counter Ruck Pte Limited was created. It requires, one of the conditions is a minimum of New Zealand $3 million equity or debt, but to have that type of money. Maintenance of $1 million at all times, cash at hand, sir. That's the requirement. And of course, a robust business model of delivering efficient financial returns so as to attract the necessary private equity participation to sustain the teams. And of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, in addition to the financial matters, a range of high performance and team performance KPIs were also in place. The rationale, of course, as I said, Mr. Speaker, sir, was to set up a separate private company to keep the financial affairs of the rugby union away from the team that's going to participate in the Super Rugby competition, sir, because of any financial failures that may occur. Because these competitions are extremely expensive, and if it's going to put additional burden to the rugby union, you could have the entire structure within that individual country collapse. So that's why they have to keep it as separate entities. Mr. Speaker, sir, when we were approached, sir, we were asked by Counter Ruck to give a grant. Mr. Speaker, sir, we could not give a grant because government cannot give a grant to a private company that's 100% privately owned, because obviously taxpayers' funds are involved. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we said we could not. Then we, as government, came up with a solution. We said we recognize that Drua is very important to the Fijian public, of course. It was very important for us. We also saw the economic advantage in terms of the competition and how Fiji, of course, is going to be the home base for Drua, at least not now, but in the later on it will be. And we saw the economic benefits, and we also know rugby is a very, very important part of our national psyche. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, we then said that we could become an equity holder. In that way, we could actually give the $6 million, but in return get shares for it, as we do in other companies, sir. So, which is what we've done, and as a result of which we'll get 51% of Counter Ruck. We've already disbursed $3 million. The second lot of the $3 million will be disbursed by December of this year, sir. The idea is that, Mr. Speaker, sir, that Drua becomes a formidable team, develops a good brand, and as a result of the brand, we've got the Fijian diaspora in Australia, New Zealand, and various other parts of the world. We also have seen, just with them, one game being played in Suva, we saw the number of people that turned up. And if you read all the social media comments, not just from Fiji, but in New Zealand and Australia, how they were commenting that the droves in which the Fijian public turned up, they wish they could get those kind of numbers when they play in Australia and New Zealand. And the merchandise sales, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, went through the roof. So these are ways that they make money. The government has also granted a 13-year income tax holiday. Will provide a waiver of duties, etc., on the goods specifically imported for Fijian Drua purposes. We've said, sir, that in time to come, government could, of course, divest its shares, get back its money, but what we would have done would have had the Drua team up and running and a good company that would be running it too. Thank you, sir.
I thank the Honourable Attorney General.